This com- Can you hear that? Like, does it tell you when it records?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I've always wanted to ask them because I'm like, I don't know what this says. Okay, cool. Wait 5 seconds. Hey friend, Catherine here, founder and creator of Meet Me at the Well. I'm so glad you found my little footprint here in the podcast world. It is an absolute honor to take up some space in your heart and mind today, and I pray it brings great joy into your life, one episode at a time. I am so honored to. Oh God. It's okay. I no, I have to restart.
Okay, go ahead, restart. I'm like, this is no, I get it. I get it. I'm like,
Okay. Hey friend, Catherine. Oh, hold on, let me stop laughing. Hey friend, Catherine here, founder and creator of Meet Me at the Well. I'm so glad you found my little footprint here in the podcast world. It's an honor to take up some space in your heart and mind today, and I pray it brings great joy into your life, one episode at a time. I'm so honored and excited to introduce our podcast guest today. My dear friend Julia is joining us, and it's actually pretty wild how we became friends. And when I say wild, I mean it was a complete God thing. We're both boy moms, and we both had the desire to have a natural birth, which turned into unplanned and unwanted C-sections for both of us. We had the same doula, who then connected us because our birth stories are so similar. We've barely spent any time together, but it's like we're soul sisters or something. God is just really incredible like that, and I'm just honored to have her here to speak with all of us. And Julia, she is an amazing Christian wife and mom, and I don't know how she does it, but she is also a military spouse. And her and her husband, Joe, they've been married for nearly 8 years and are blessed with a 1.5-year-old son. She's passionate about sharing her journey and how God has walked her through healing in both marriage and life, all with the hope of inspiring and supporting others on their own paths. Without further ado, welcome, Julia.
thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's an honor to be on your podcast. I've been listening since your very first episode and have just been really encouraged and inspired by your vulnerability and the guests that you've already had on here. So just excited to be here.
Thanks so much, friend. It really is just so amazing. Like, just with this new rebrand and stuff, just thinking about like, what is the message that I really want to get across? And, we've just, God was like, Julia, like, and just some things that you've shared with me one-on-one. And I know your heart for wanting to help people. And I was like, let's do this. Like, let's open it up. And I
Definitely.
just want to bring all the people on to help share the message that a life with God can literally
Mhm.
change absolutely everything.
For sure.
And I've been wanting to hear like your whole healing journey. And so I really want to start off with that. So could you share your healing journey and how life with God has brought you through healing in both marriage and life?
Yeah, definitely. So, man, it's been a journey for sure. Um, so I'll start with I didn't really grow up in the church. I grew up, my family is Catholic. I was baptized Catholic as a baby, but we never really went to church consistently. Like I didn't even know what a relationship with God was.
Wow.
Um, However, I always, like thinking back, I always knew who to pray to when times were rough. Like I always, so there were, of course, seeds planted, within me from people that maybe can't identify right now because I was really young, but um my healing journey, I would say, started with when I was in college. Someone suggested, they kind of identified some things that were going on with me and suggested that I see a therapist. And I was like, what? Why do you think I need to see a therapist, But I'm so grateful now that I really just went with it. I'm so grateful that I'm open and available to what others share with me for my growth. I'm never put off by anything. I will always think about that and take that into account even before, my prayer life. Now I pray about it more, but yeah, so I started in therapy. Didn't
So,
really, what
like,
was that?
that's huge though, that you just like took it, because so many people, myself included, I used to get like so defensive, like somebody
Yeah.
would be like, you need to work on this. And I'm like, excuse me, like, who are you? But
Right.
now, like, I am like, okay, maybe you're right. Like, let me look
Mhm.
into this and see the root cause of why I might be acting like this or something. Like, especially
Right.
with Anthony, my husband, like he'll say something and I'm like, what? Like, at first I'm like, I used to get so defensive if he said anything to me that just like rubbed me the wrong way. And now I'm like, okay, this man like loves me and he has like pure intentions for me. He's not trying to hurt my feelings. So yeah, it's like applause to you for being
See?
able to accept that's what somebody said and go into therapy. That's huge.
For sure. And I totally know I've been there. Even though I'm open and receptive, I've for sure been there. And I will say, like, it put me off because to be honest, like, she was like, I think you're depressed. And I was like, what is that? Like, I just didn't know. Like, now that I'm older and that I've shared this stuff with my family, like, I know that our family has, a history of the same patterns. And I just didn't know that. I didn't know, but I'm so glad. And I know that God led me, God was the one, it's only him that allowed me to be, helped me be open and receptive because there were other times where I wasn't. Um, so yeah, so that started there. But I will say, it was when I started to really pursue God in this healing journey, it was a pivotal moment for me. I will never forget it. I don't know if I've shared this with you one-on-one. I don't think I have, but
Okay.
it
I'm
was
so
the
excited.
first argument that actually Joe and I got into while married. We got married very young. I was 21. I had just turned 21. He had just turned 22. Um, and we had also only known each other 9 months. So it
Wow.
was, yeah, which was very odd for both of us because both of us were like long-term people. We planned our whole lives out. Like our family was like, what's kind of going on? But now obviously we just knew like and so yeah, I remember our first argument. I didn't well growing up I had never even ever seen an example of a healthy marriage ever until I looked for that in others when I was married because I realized I needed it. But I remember our first fight, and I remember sitting in our little tiny one-bedroom apartment. We had like no money at the time. He was newly in the military. I had just graduated college. And I remember sitting with my back up against the wall and just crying, just like sobbing and praying, like, God help me. Like, what did I get myself into? Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to go to. Like, I had no one, literally no one that I trusted enough. And I'm so like, there's so many little things that I'm like, I couldn't have done that on my own. I couldn't have known that on my own. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of people I could have gone to. I could have gone to friends, I could have gone to family, but somehow I knew that wasn't going to lead me in the right direction according to who I need to be according to, that those were pivotal moments where in the early days I could have gone to someone who could have led me astray because they were trying to encourage me to be comfortable or happy, right? When really that's not the point of marriage.
No,
So,
marriage is the complete
right. So
opposite.
that's when I really remember for the first time truly pursuing God and being like, I need you in my life and I need your guidance, and I'm not going to get where I want to get without it. Um, so yeah, I always tell that story and I'm like, oh man, I'm so grateful. But yeah, so that was kind of a pivotal moment. From there, at that time, Joe and I were not going to church together. Joe actually did not grow up in church. I don't think he had ever been to church in his life. And I asked him to go and he was like, no, that's like he just didn't feel comfortable, I guess. He didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And that's when we kind of went back to our conversations that we had before getting married and like the values we want for our family and the foundation we want to lay. And I really did want to, because I was building a relationship with God, I really wanted my babies to know that because I just thought about like, if I had this when I was younger, like how much better off would I have been, earlier, sooner. Of course, my journey was my journey for a reason. But yeah, so In a nutshell, I actually prayed for Joe, nagged him a little bit in the beginning, I will say, until I got some guidance from godly women, but prayed for about 3 years for Joe to go to church. And in that time, I was watch online. I didn't want to go alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have, because we are a military family, we lived in Texas first during this time of everything I'm talking about. And then we moved to Hawaii, and again, another pivotal moment because of the people we met there and the
Yeah.
church we started going to there. But in Hawaii, one Sunday, I just remember him being like, "Do you want to go to church?" And I was like, "What?" It's like, "What?" Like, finally. And
Wow.
it was only a couple weeks after I had started a new job there, and I was talking to some women there that I started to confide in, some godly women, and they were like, you need to stop nagging him and you need to just really pray hard. And it just a couple weeks later, just a couple weeks later.
Wow. Look
Yeah.
at God, man.
Right, right. So that was, oh man. Then we started, of course, to meet couples in the church and, kind of see their fruit and what they had and the relationships they had that we really had never seen before in our lives, because we do both come from broken homes. Um, so yeah, that was helped me to heal as well, to see other couples and to know that I had someone to go to. Because, like I said, I personally didn't have family. I know some people do, and that's great, but I really needed just a neutral, just healthy perspective of marriage. And yeah, I needed to know honestly how to be a wife. I needed to
Yeah.
learn that.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel that to my absolute core. Like when Anthony and I first got married, like our first year of marriage was pretty rough. We didn't really know how to communicate with each other and um, you know, everybody kind of tells you like the first year is pretty hard and we're like, no, like we're best
yeah,
friends. We love each other and then like you're in this home together and you have to learn that what you're used to doing in like maybe another situation or like another relationship, you can't do that in a marriage if you want it to be healthy. And we, were blessed to find a couple in our church that we used to attend back in North Carolina um, that became like our mentors. We were like just going in, trying to walk into the like service, and this girl or woman walked up to me and was like, "Hey, me and my husband are leading a like e-group. You guys want to join?" And we were like, when is it?" And we were both kind of like standoffish about it. It didn't align with our like schedule at all. So we're like, this can't like it's not gonna happen. And we eventually just got to this place where we were like, okay, we need to be plugged in. We needed somebody to be like speaking into our marriage and into our lives. And um we started going to the group and they have just like completely transformed our marriage, because like they've been married for a really long time and they have 6 kids and
wow.
yeah, and they're just incredible couple and I just love them so very much and they helped us learn how to fight, because
Yep.
like you're
Yes.
gonna fight, but it's how
Yes.
you fight that matters. And
Mhm.
like what I was saying before, like I used to get so defensive and like I would just walk away because my image, my parents, my mom would just walk away. Like they would have an argument and they would fight and it was like all hell broke loose. They would say terribly mean things. And so I didn't grow up with a healthy image of what a marriage was supposed to look like or, a friendship within your like
Yeah.
spousehood. And it was just like I didn't know what it looked like either. And Anthony doesn't really know what it looked like or didn't really know what it looked like either. And so we just got to this place where, we just relied so heavily on this couple because we want like our marriage and our life to look like them
Yeah.
basically. And so we've just like clung to them, like even moving away. Like Anthony gets text messages from the husband like every day, like biblical message,
Mm,
biblical
yeah.
like or Bible verses and stuff, and like a
Mhm.
little message, and like that's amazing. And I still talk to
Yeah.
my wife, and
Awesome.
Yeah, like God is just so cool like that, like he'll just bring
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
in,
For sure.
change absolutely everything.
For
So
sure.
you keep going. I'm gonna
Definitely.
stop talking.
No, no, definitely. No, and I can relate to all that. And with that, that made me think of this, that I kind of had in my notes. And it's to the best thing I was ever taught is to be a fruit inspector.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of us, it's easy, I guess, to go to a family member or someone that makes you feel good or someone you've known forever, like, oh, my friend that I've known for 20 plus years or whatever it may be. And though those people love us, we really need to think this is what I feel like I has really helped me like grow and heal and go the right way in the right direction that I want to go based on my values is being a fruit inspector, right? Not only looking at like, oh, just someone's results or family life on the outside look like what I want, but really start to think or even ask them directly, like if they have similar values, right? If they have values that are aligned, because someone can so, I think I mentioned this earlier, but someone can so easily lead us astray
Oh yeah.
if their values are different, if they don't really see marriage in a biblical way, you know?
Yeah.
So it's so,
It's
so important
beautiful.
to have those people, like you were saying, to speak into our lives that have shared values, you know, who that
Yeah.
have truly the fruit that we want, that know how to fight, you know, that are not
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're not going to fight," but just the reality of things and how to go about that. So,
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful way to like look at that, because I mean, the Bible tells us to guard our hearts for everything flows from it, and if we allow somebody to speak something into our lives that might agree with how we're feeling, but it's not the truth and biblical truth and like going to challenge the way that, we're viewing a situation or whatever, then they'll lead us astray. And
right,
the enemy doesn't want healthy marriages. He doesn't want people to stay together. He
right.
wants division within homes. He wants broken marriages, and he will do what he can in order to spew those lies to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And when we feed those insecurities and those lies, like it will, that's what's going to come from us, and it's
Yep.
either going to
Yep.
be good fruit or it's going to be spoiled fruit. And I think that's something that I've just like really taken on in my own life, just to make sure that like my son sees fruit
Yes.
from me, good, yummy fruit, that's gonna like hydrate him and
Yeah.
feed him and nourish him, not and it's not gonna like destroy him or get him
Mhm.
sick, and lead him down a path that's gonna be destructive. And it's the same like, yeah, with friendships and marriage, just everything. Like that is just a really beautiful picture that you painted. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's the and you said something too, that is the enemy does not want united families, united
No.
couples,
Yeah.
and healthy marriages and families. And that is something that I have to remind myself of constantly. You know, there's times where I'm not perfect, even though I'm healing, even though, I'm walking with God. Like there are times where I have, negative thoughts or thoughts that I'm like, what is going on? And I
Yeah.
start to look at my husband in a negative way. And I'm like, wait a second, let's bring this back.
Where's this coming
Um,
from?
where's this coming from? And I have to remind myself, like, this is the enemy. And, I have to remind myself, like, what is truly going on, Julia? Step back. What's truly going on? Is it what you're thinking? And no, it never is. It never is, So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I have a really funny story, just kind of like picture, like paint this all for us. Okay. This is really vulnerable moment for me.
go.
um, because we're all healing. Like I want people to realize, like whoever's listening, it doesn't matter how long you've had a relationship with Jesus. I grew up in the church. Like, I accepted Jesus as my savior when I was 16, but then I did have a time, where I turned from him and would call myself an atheist. And so, like, I have this huge journey. I've known God for so long, but like, I still battle these insecurities and lies that, like, the enemy will root inside of me. So, yesterday, my husband had a meeting and he got me coffee. Amazing husband. He always gets me coffee. And so he came back. I had my son down, or our son down, for a nap. And so like he woke up, went downstairs, my coffee, my cat is like meowing right now. Sorry everybody, but so oh gosh. So I came downstairs and I went to get my coffee and it was in the fridge and it wasn't in like the normal cup from like a coffee shop or whatever. It was in one of our like tumbler things. And I was like, why isn't it in the normal cup? And because he's like never done that before. And so I was like, what happened? So I looked in the trash. It wasn't in the trash. And so my husband's water uh like tumbler thing was in the sink. I was like, did something happen to your water bottle? And he was like, no, why? And I was like, well, you have it like in the sink to be cleaned. He's like, yeah, it just needs to be cleaned. And so my mind goes to, oh my gosh, did a woman write her number on my coffee cup and he threw it away to get rid of the evidence? And I'm like, this is like a snowball of like, I'm like, Catherine, what the heck? Like, and so I don't have the courage to like say anything. And he's like, why? And I'm like, so then I'm like, did a woman write her number down on your coffee cup and that's why you had to throw it away? And he was like, no. So he was gonna go get his hair cut by a friend, and he knew my coffee would be in the car waiting for him. So he dumped out his water and put my coffee in his tumbler to keep it cold. And so that's why his tumbler was cold or dirty. And that's why my coffee was in a different cup, not because some woman wrote her number down. And I'm like, what? Like, so if we allow these
Yep.
things
Yep.
to just like fester and like don't continuously work on feeding ourselves truth from the Bible, like I'm so
Mhm.
big on like healing is a choice. Like it is a daily choice
For
that we have
sure.
to make. Like we have to make that daily choice to
100%. Yep.
spend time with God. So his seeds are continuously being planted and he's watering our vine and our
Yep.
fruits, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so silly. And so he just started laughing. He was like, you seriously think that I would like keep that from you? And I was like, oh my gosh. So, yeah, that
Oh
was
man.
wild.
I can
So,
relate. Now that you shared that, I have to share real quick. Oh man.
there,
So,
girl.
we are a military family. My husband was active duty, military for 7 years, and then he switched over to National Guard, which is like more reserves, one weekend a month, but a month long training in the summer. Um, in 2022 he switched over, so he just got back from his month training. Okay, so during this month training, of course, I went down a couple rabbit holes that way, a couple roads that I shouldn't have gone down, right? Mentally, and just it was just hard being away and being with the baby by myself and things. And so we talked a lot while he was gone about my love language, and I was telling him, I really need you to love me in my love language. um just do more of these things. Like my love language, my main love language, because he says I have all five, is
Man, us women are so complicated.
is acts of service. So on his way home, he had to drive 10 hours home from the training. And on his way home, he called me and was like, hey, are you going to keep the baby up? Because the baby was so excited to see him. And are you going to keep the baby up, until I get home? And it was a little past the time we usually put the baby to bed. So I was like, yeah, I can keep him up. He's a little tired, but I'll keep him up. Like, no worries. He hasn't seen you in a month. And he's like, okay. So then we have each other on like Find My iPhone. So then he's like taking forever and I'm like, is he okay? Like what happened? So I look on the app and he stopped at a store and I'm like, are you kidding me? So I like get all upset and I call him and I'm like, you really felt the need to stop at a store? Like I was just being like so like nasty. I was like, you really felt the need to stop at a store? Like, I'm keeping the baby awake. I was like, that's like so inconsiderate. And like, I'm going on and on. And he's like, what? Like, he's like, yeah, just real quick. Like, I'll be right there. And I'm like, yeah, well, it makes it so that up even later, and it wasn't a big deal, you know, but I think I was just so eager to see him too after a month. And anyway, he was getting flowers,
Oh,
which I found out when he got home, right? And I felt terrible. I was like, I'm so sorry.
oh
Like,
my
I'm like, you
gosh.
know what? Sometimes I just need to just keep my mouth shut. I was
Yes.
like, because no, and just, just sometimes I think I just need to remind myself, like, okay, where, just captivate that thought before it spews into me being mean to him. And I was being inconsiderate actually because I didn't know he was trying to surprise me, right? And anyway, yeah. It
No,
just
I
goes to show there's always going to be little things like that, right?
agree.
But then it helps us learn and it helps us grow and it helps us it reminds us who our husbands truly are, right?
Yeah, who God has given us, and
Yeah.
not like, because, oh my gosh, I've been through so many terrible relationships, and um like Anthony is just like this incredible man, and it's so easy to get fixed on what you're used to.
Hmm.
And that has been, I guess, one of my biggest struggles is like what I'm used to is the complete opposite of Anthony. And sometimes it's so easy to revert back to like those fears and those lies and be like, okay, well, this is easier almost to believe than to try to heal and believe that this man is only like here for me, only loves me and has no desire to hurt me.
Amen.
And I think like such a powerful thing that we can do is speak those lies into the light, and like as soon as I spoke that like lie that some girl wrote like her number on the cup, I like immediately realized like that is so silly. And I mean, it's possible. My husband is a friggin' smoke show. He
Love
is a
that.
snack. But like, he wouldn't keep that from me and he wouldn't try to hide something. And um it's like you just have to get things out into the light, like when we reveal things, reveal hurt or pain or lies, it allows God's light and truth to seep into that. And it releases the power and control that the enemy has over
Yeah.
you and those lies. And I just think that's like such a powerful choice that we get to make every day too, speak those lies out so they
Yeah.
don't just live within you, and
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
God's light and truth can live within you.
For sure. Oh man, that is so key. And that brings me back to like me talking about like the early times in my healing or the beginning of the journey when I was vulnerable and receptive. And it's so important. One thing that I really try hard to do is to be so incredibly self-aware. And
Mm,
that includes, like you were saying, speaking these things, even if it doesn't feel good, even if we
yeah,
don't want to admit that maybe we were wrong, or maybe we've been, you know, um, repeating some toxic patterns, that have been passed down through generations or whatever it may be. That's my personal experience.
same.
Speaking that is so important, like you were saying, so that we can, yeah, let the light in for sure. Because if we, that's what the enemy wants. The enemy wants us to keep it in our heads, to not speak it, to not admit it to ourselves or to others, and to just hold on to that and just let it fester. And then it just destroys us, right?
Yeah. Keeps us like from sleeping at night, keeps us from like fully being invested in our
Yeah.
marriage and in ourselves
Mhm.
and like becoming who God has called us to be. And
Yeah.
because it just allows those strongholds of the enemy to just stay there.
Yeah.
When really we need to be actively breaking them every single day.
Yeah.
And like when you're on a healing journey, especially like, my gosh, you just have so many things that it just goes back to the fact that the enemy just doesn't want us to be healthy in a marriage and he doesn't want us to be healthy as individuals.
Yeah.
And he knows our weaknesses. He knows that I have an insecurity that some woman is going to catch Anthony's eyes and he's going to be like, oh, she's way more beautiful or kinder, smarter, whatever than my wife. And, like
Yeah.
those are all lies, but like that's my
Definitely.
insecurity and the enemy's going to attack that because he
Mhm.
knows.
Yep.
But thankfully, the good news is that God is all powerful and
Yeah.
is The enemy really doesn't have any power. The enemy has power of what we give him.
For sure. Yeah.
And God has power no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just remembering that, like, we have the choice to give the enemy power or to give God the power.
For
And
sure.
we often, give the enemy way too much power.
Much power.
Um,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's
I
just,
always say, remember who you are and whose you are.
yes,
That's something I will never forget. And that keeps me going, right? Like I know whose I am. Like it
yeah, Jesus.
nothing literally, literally, like nothing can destroy me.
Yeah, amen, girl. So y'all have been married for 8 years. Like, that's wild.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Um, is there anything else that like God has really done through your marriage and like through life just to heal you or
Yeah, so two instances I wanted to share that I feel like might help others. Um because they are bigger things that God has walked me through in my marriage and in life. And the first one I'll start with is my marriage. I walked through a season. It felt like the longest season when I was in it, but seeing Joe as an idol,
Hmm,
seeing him really above God. And that's not easy to say because I don't like that I was there, right? I hate
yeah.
that I was there. Um, but and I didn't even really realize that I got there, but and I do forget like how I really identified that.
Hmm,
It may have been our mentors actually. We had really, really great mentors when
awesome.
we lived in Hawaii. Two couples actually that really spoke into our marriage, and it may have been them. I forget. But there was a time where I identified that, yeah, I was putting Joe above God. And in that moment, like when I identified that and prayed on it, like I didn't even know how to change it. I was like, I don't want to be this way, God. Like, I don't want to put my husband above you, but I don't know how this happened and I don't know how to get out of it. Like, I don't know why I'm seeing him this way. And I
Yeah.
don't know, like, it wasn't an easy, like, okay, we'll just put God first. Like, it wasn't easy for me. Like, it wasn't. Like, I don't know. I had been maybe in this pattern for a couple of years now, or had this habit for a couple of years now that I was just like, that's who I saw my husband as. But I was talking through this with someone the other day and she explained it so well. She was saying, yeah, like when we do that, it basically makes him, we see him, I saw him as like a god. So I didn't even see him as human. So anything that he did that was very humanly, right? Like messed up or did something that I didn't, love or agree with, especially because it was early in our marriage, I would lose it. Like I can't like it's the end of the world. I can't believe my husband did this one little thing and like not looking at him as human when I have to remember like we are both human, right? Neither of us are God. Like
Yeah.
and so anyway, I remember just praying hard through, and I'm sure others prayed for me too because I shared this with others that helped me, but like I said, in that season it felt like the longest season and I was like, why isn't it an easy switch to
Yeah.
just say I'm gonna put God above my husband? Like like you would think that like logically, right? That but my heart wasn't there. My heart wasn't there and I felt terrible for it. So yeah, I just maybe within the past year realized, like reflected, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're not there anymore. We haven't been there in a while.
Thank
And
God,
I'm
yeah.
so incredibly grateful that now I can allow, because not only that, I think it was maybe a control thing too,
Mm,
because I know that when I really got to the point where I was allowing, really God to be the loudest voice in my mind, and in my life, I also noticed there was a shift where I allowed my husband to lead more. So I think that it was a control thing. I was trying to control the way my husband treated me, the way our marriage was going. I was trying to control me and him, me and, my husband.
yeah.
So that was huge for me. That was huge. And like I said, it wasn't an easy, switch. So anyone else who's going through that, like I want you to know, like you're not alone and it's not it's crazy, yeah, maybe. I didn't want to be there, but you're gonna get through it and there you're gonna see the light and there's gonna be a moment where you realize like God is first for both of us and it just makes things so much better. Like there's so much that changed after, as it was a journey. It wasn't like a flip of a switch of like my prayers were answered in a day, right? But as I started seeing more and more, like our life just became more and more fruitful. So that was something that, yeah, God really helped me. It was a heart thing for sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. I really want like what did that look like daily for you? Like making Joe an idol? Like because you said like it was a control thing, but like what would I guess like putting him above God, like what did that like how did that play out, I guess?
Yeah, so I was looking to his opinions and not that our husband's opinions and perspectives shouldn't be important. They should, I do believe in allowing my husband to lead
Yeah.
our family, but it was that I was looking to him first. I wasn't praying about it. I didn't care about anything else. It was like if Joe thought that I didn't agree with what I did, it was like the end of the world. Like, what? Why don't you agree? This is the way it's supposed to go, Like it was a lot of me overreacting about a lot of things that he did. Like everything was a big deal. Everything that didn't align with what made me feel comfortable in that season was a
Mm,
huge deal. And it was a lot of, I'm not proud to say it, but a lot of like exploding on him. And a lot of that has to do with, just what I saw growing up and yelling and things like that. And like I said, I really had to learn how to be a wife and just a woman of God and really had to look within and figure out who God wanted me to be for myself, for my husband, for our family, for people that I hope to speak into one day. As our mentor spoken to us. But yeah, going back to what it looked like daily, yeah, it looked like I said, not proud to say this, I hate saying this, but going off on Joe a lot, going off on him, making everything he did a big deal. A lot of things were wrong. Like, no, that's wrong. Why you're not loving me the right way, you're not doing this the right way. And Joe, if you know him, is an absolutely incredible man. He has never ever made me question my security. He has never and through that, and that's why, I'm like, oh my goodness, God really led me to this man and his family because for him to put up with me walking through that, like
yes.
that wasn't easy for him either. And he did it so effortlessly and he never brings it up. I bring it up more than he does because I still do have some shame for that, for sure. And that's what I'm working through as well. But I bring it up more because I'm always apologizing. He doesn't care. He's like, it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine. You're human, right? That's something that I had to remind myself of. He's human, right? Um,
That's
so I hope
amazing.
that answered kind of what it looked like in the
Yeah,
day.
no, it did. That's so incredible. I'm so happy for you, friend. Just like how God has, brought you through this and given you a man who can silence all the lies that you're used to, and
Yeah, for
help
sure.
build and create just a healthy marriage. And I just love that. I'm so happy for you and someone who like doesn't bring up the past and make you feel bad about it or that's a powerful thing and
Mhm. Mhm.
I struggle with control um and like stepping back to let Anthony lead. That's something that I'm like really personally working through right now because like I've always like I've led my life my entire life, and um I didn't really ask my parents for advice or anything. And um, yeah, so that's like the stage that I'm really in is just like trying to step back and like, because I don't want to be the leader of our family. I know that's not the biblical way that
Yeah.
it's supposed to be. And that's like, that can create a really unhealthy marriage. And I'm like more outspoken than my husband is. So like if he doesn't speak, I will speak. And so that's something that, I've acknowledged and I don't know why I feel the need to fill that void of like he's not speaking or I need to speak or whatever. So yeah, but I know it like gets under his skin, because he's like, this is how it's supposed to be. And not because like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, like
Right. No,
do
no, I
this,
get
but like he wants to lead our family well and
hmm
he wants our family to be the image that God has ordained for marriages. And, when you think about it and really look at it, that is like what creates a healthy,
Yeah,
healthy marriage.
for
So
sure.
I don't want to miss out on anything for
No,
you.
I want
Said
I want
two
to
things.
say, go ahead. Yeah, I'll go to that. I want to respond to what you were saying, because there's many things we walked through. That was another thing. Um, I grew up with like, I hate to say it, but like a feminist like influence um in my family. And so that was really unhealthy. So I have actually walked through a similar, like you were saying, you're in the season now of like not having so much control. And that was another season where I was like, is this ever gonna end? Like, I don't want to have control. Like you said, like I want my husband to lead, but it was a little different for us where my husband, because I am very outspoken. I am a lot more, it seems like we have a similar personality and maybe our husbands,
Yeah.
are in that way. But Joe got to the point where he kind of would just let me talk over him. And he was like, okay. Like he wasn't gonna fight it. He's very reserved. Like he was like, that's fine. If you want to take the lead, if you want to, go ahead. And maybe because it got exhausting to like always be like competing for that attention or to even like in public, like I noticed people would like look like, why is she answering for him?
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
And it was something that, and I'm not perfect. I'm sure there's times I still do it, but I'm way more mindful of it now because it's something that like I really do want to not do, long term, like not do permanently. But there has been a shift for sure in allowing him to lead. And now I'm like, we need to have a one-on-one talk about this because I'm like, we need to just, share what we've learned. And
Yeah.
but yeah, that's something that I walked through for sure. And I feel like I've seen a lot of breakthrough in recently, and it also makes me want to share something else. There's just so much in our journey that I'm just like, um, seeing him as an idol and also having to do with the control. It was a long journey, I will say. I want to share something real quick, but I had not, so I told you I was baptized as a baby, Catholic, right, in a Catholic
Yeah.
church. I had never been baptized in the Christian church, and I really wanted that because my views are just so different now than they were from what I saw growing up. Like our lifestyle is totally different. The church we go to is totally different.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted, like, I had this image of like getting baptized with Joe because we started this journey together. We,
Yeah.
kind of started building our relationships, truly building our relationship with God, while we were married and things like that. And so I always just saw ourselves getting baptized together. I think I've seen like pictures and stuff and videos of like couples being baptized together. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's like what I want, right? But
Yeah.
he just wasn't there, in the time I was there. And I remember there was one time at our church in Hawaii, the first church we started going to, and I was like, they were like, we're doing baptisms at the beach today. Everyone's welcome. And I was like, let's go get baptized. And he was like, no. And again, that was in that season. I went off. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, why would you not want to, you don't mind coming to church? You gave your life to Jesus, you pray, you like, and anyway, he didn't end up doing it, so I didn't end up doing it. Anyway,
Oh,
it took us moving to North Carolina. In a nutshell, I went to a women's conference and I remember just getting the pull. And there's like so much to this story that I'm like, oh man, I don't want to get into too much of the details. But long
okay.
story short, I ended up finally getting baptized. Hi, Dawson. I
Hey.
ended up finally getting baptized. And it was, man, I'm sure anyone listening can get to what I'm saying or understand kind of what I'm saying. Like it just led to so much breakthrough in so many areas of my life. And I didn't even realize like I was still a little bit seeing Joe as an idol still a little bit, trying to control things. And when I let go of that and allowed myself to really go on my own journey and really have my own relationship with God, like we are not gonna have, the same relationship with God. It led to so much breakthrough. But anyway, that to say, so
Incredible.
yeah, on the same, on the
That's
same.
incredible though. Like way to like realize that and before you even knew that you were placing Joe as an idol, you were like, let me just do this, like this is where I am. And I think it's so easy because I used to want like us to do like Bible studies and stuff together because I was like, other couples do it, like
Yeah,
we need to do it too. Like it's so easy to get this like I guess, image in your head of what a perfect marriage is supposed to look like or whatever. But in reality, every marriage is different because people are different. Everybody's dealing with different insecurities or past hurts or current hurts or whatever it might look like. And, you know, their relationship, even though we're supposed to be equally yoked, some people aren't gonna I guess what's the word that I want to use? Um or how do I want to articulate this? They're just like not gonna be there to like walk you through your relationship, like
yeah,
your
yeah.
relationship with Jesus is you and Jesus,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
yes, you need to be talking about God and things and going to church with your spouse, but like ultimately, like God has to change you before he can change your marriage. And he
Yes.
has to continuously be working in you and through you in order to make your marriage the way that it needs to be. And
Yeah,
so, you know, I think it's really easy to be swayed by what your husband might say or like be waiting for them to say something like their opinion about what a Bible verse means or whatever. And God wants to talk to us about those things individually,
yeah, yes.
um, he wants to shape us as women and men are different.
Mhm.
And, God's gonna direct us in a different way, in a different aspect. And when we think about our roles within a marriage, like a Bible verse might speak differently to me than it will Anthony.
Yeah,
And that's
true.
okay, like that's what God is telling him, and that's what God is like speaking to me. And
Yeah,
um we have to make those spaces. And I didn't do that. I was just like, we need to sit at the dining room table and we need to do
yeah.
Bible study together. And we need to get all these books that are like for couples. And, you know, I was just like, this is what it needs to look like in order for it to be perfect. But that was just not the image that God was like wanting to create for us and like was trying to break for me, like that it needed to look a certain way. Like it doesn't have to look a certain way. It's supposed to look how your marriage is going to look based on two imperfect people coming together and laying it all down at the foot of Jesus, and at the foot of the cross. And yeah, like that's just like a huge thing that I've had to accept and get over,
Yep.
but I'm like, I'm really proud of you for realizing things and walking through that. And I guess if somebody's listening and they're facing a difficult season within their marriage, like what's one advice that you could give someone or something that you've learned that is just like invaluable that would help them walk through that season?
Yeah, well, first I want to say I'm so proud of you too, because I mean, you're very self-aware. Clearly, you're very, um, you realize these things and are working through them too. And
Oh, Jesus, man.
I know, I
It's
know
all
that's
God.
definitely not me. In a nutshell, I will say I always preach like it's so like cliche maybe, but like prayer and worship. I know like people are probably like, yeah, of course, duh, right? But no, really, like for me, I really had to work on what like not allowing my mind to be idle without focusing on um biblical truth, right? Without focusing on God. I cannot allow my mind to be idle like that. I mean, I'm a little bit better with it now, but I would just go to like we are talking about the negative thoughts or,
Yeah.
bring myself down, like feed lies, be
Yeah.
myself lies,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why I say prayer and worship. Like if you're in a time where you're just frustrated, you're sad, you're mad, like whatever it is that you want to work through, like if your mind can't stop feeding yourself those lies, put on worship music, blast it in your car,
Yes.
in your
Yes.
house, pray. Of course, the obvious answer is open your Bible, right? But I know that realistically speaking, that hasn't always been easy for me.
Same.
So sometimes it's easier for me to go in my music app and turn on, a Christian song that I love and that speaks to me and that, that glorifies God and all that He wants for my life. And it's a good reminder. Um, and yeah, it just reminds me, I was going through, I don't even remember what was going on, but I was in the car one day and I never listened to the radio, but I turned the radio on and that song came on, Don't Stop Praying. And so anyway, it really spoke to me. But that to say, like I'm big on like on worship. That's my favorite part of
Yes.
Sunday mornings. But anyway, so yeah, don't allow your mind to just be idle and continue to feed yourself those lies. But also look for, like I said, be a fruit inspector, but look for wisdom and guidance in people who can really lead you the right way. And I will say sometimes we don't have people, right? There's some people that can't find a mentor, and there's great books out there. And continue to be a fruit inspector while you're reading those books. Like I don't know what book someone's going to pick up, so I can't say like that book's going to help, or going to
Yeah.
be totally on point with your views and I mean your values and things like that and who God wants you to be. But yeah, there's a lot of great books out there. And a lot of times when I didn't have anyone to go to, I found a lot of what I've learned in books. And a couple books that I want to highlight. There's a book called Get Married, Stay Married. And I actually met the couple that wrote that book, and
Oh,
they're
wow.
incredible. They were really good friends of our mentors in Hawaii, and so we knew them personally. And I read the book and was just blown away at their journey because seeing them now, they're in their 70s, maybe 80s, the ones who wrote the book Get Married, Stay Married. It's by Paul and Billy K. Sika, Tsika. Seeing them now, you would never think they went through what they went through. And so anyway, just incredible. But what was the other book I wanted to highlight? I forget now. But anyway, that was a big one. That was
You
a pretty
can
that was
text it to me and I'll like link it in the show notes or something.
okay. Perfect. But yeah, I would say those are the two key things. Like, don't let your mind, continue to feed yourself the lies and just look for that guidance and wisdom somewhere else because sometimes we can pray about it, right? We can open our Bibles, we can look to God, and sometimes we hear that, but I think sometimes we don't allow ourselves to hear what we need to hear. And I think that everyone just receives things a little different depending on where they are in their journey. So don't stop fighting for your marriage. Don't, because like we talked about, the enemy does not want healthy marriages. And um, yeah, whoever's listening, you deserve a healthy marriage. You deserve to be healthy. You will overcome, your childhood trauma. You will overcome the toxic and negative patterns that maybe were passed down to you, and you'll have a healthy, fruitful life, and raise your babies on firm foundation. I say baby because I'm thinking of my own life and just what I've experienced, but that's what I have to say to that.
That's incredible. I love that. It's so powerful. Like we have a choice to silence the lies. And I so very quickly turned to worship as well. And yeah, I love worship. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
same here, same here.
Mhm.
Same.
I love that advice, and I'm gonna, put that in my little pocket too. And I know, like, just speaking of your son and our birth stories, I think you can tie marriage and a birth story kind of together. Bless you, I think.
Yes.
Uh, but just like how our plans don't go how we want them to, after experiencing just the complete opposite outcome for your son's birth. like what did you learn about God's plan and your plan? And just kind of like through the lens of marriage too, with everything
Yeah.
just kind of working out the way it has.
This was a big one. And like you mentioned, through the lens of, marriage, I would say this for everything. But I would say this what I'm going to say next, I would say for every aspect of life. However, I've never had a time where I so quickly accepted it.
Mm,
And I am so grateful for that. But what I'm going to say is I learned to quickly get with God's plan and throw mine out the window because
yes.
it's not what was meant to be. The vision
Yeah.
I had, the picture I had, it's not what it was supposed to look like for whatever reason. And I may not know all the reasons now why I had a home birth turned unplanned C-section, but I'm grateful and I have no trauma over any of that. And I'm so grateful. And it's because God knew that I needed the doula that connected us. God knew I needed her. God knew I needed the midwife that I had because the way that they advocated for me and the way that they cared for me and my 19 hours of laboring at home, it was non-emergent. It was we thought we were going to the hospital to get some Pitocin to just get a consistent contraction pattern. And then we tried everything we could. And the Pitocin was actually making his heart like decelerate. And so that's when after even trying at the hospital for almost 10 hours, I think more, they did everything they could for me. Like I just people think it's really crazy that I say I still had an incredible experience. Not what I planned, not what I had in mind, not what I would have chose for me or anyone else, but it's the way it had to be. And I have a healthy baby boy now, and he's beautiful. He's the most incredible thing. Like I'm tearing up thinking about it because I'm sure you can relate. Like he is just like the biggest blessing and becoming a mom just like helped me heal so many things too, right?
Mhm.
Um and so I'm just grateful to God for leading me to again, it comes back to the wise counsel that was around me during that time that helped me when I was vulnerable or couldn't think for myself. Um so yeah, that would be my answer is I learned to quickly get with God's plan and throw mine right out the window because it wasn't the way it was meant to be. Or
Yeah,
what
no,
the way it was meant to look.
that's incredible. I remember like being kind of so angry, I guess, with God for a little bit. Because I was like, all these like this other girl that I know, I went to high school with her. She had like a home birth and her baby um was delivered feet first. And I was, yeah, breached. And I was like,
Mhm.
why did she get to have her baby at home and I couldn't, and
Right.
it was just like it was just I don't know, it's so easy to compare or like want to question God, but I think ultimately, like I put all of this focus on like I need to have a natural birth in order for my son to be healthy, for him to want to nurse, for us to have a healthy connection. And because like you get so focused on like all these things that all these like influencers will say about like a natural birth and like all these things. And yes, it's fantastic. And that's the way that I hope to go next. But if God blesses us with another baby. But like, ultimately God has the final say, like I put so much focus on all these outward things that needed to happen that I forgot who is like the creator of my baby and the
Yeah.
creator of this moment. And um I gave all the control to all these things, instead of like God.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was my plan, gave the control to other things and not Jesus. And
Mhm.
so I think like for me, I am like, I don't want to plan, like, because God's plan is always going to be best, and like so many people who God then instantly like started showing me like these women who did have home births and like her kid had to be in the NICU forever
Yeah.
and like had a birth defect or something. And I was like, praise God that like that's not my story, and like no, it didn't happen how I wanted it to, but it's better, you know?
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
was in labor for over 24 hours and I was
Mhm.
at 9 centimeters for 7 hours. And my cervix started to swell and they're like, you need a C-section. And it wasn't an emergency for me either. And I thank God for that,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
So
thank God it wasn't an emergency thing. It just needed to happen. Like he needed to come out. And now like we see his little pictures and his little head is like
okay.
oh my God, I can't believe I like made him stay in there that long. Like
I know, right? Or like my poor baby's head. I labored at home for about 19 hours. And yeah, same here where I was at like 8.5, 9 centimeters for hours, like
yeah.
over 12 hours.
Oh my God. Yeah,
So
it's
yeah.
insane. But go us. We got that baby out and
Yep.
God is teaching us things and we're learning and growing. My kitty cat.
Yep.
And then yeah, I'm proud of us. We did it and God has a
Absolutely.
purpose and a plan for everything and
Mhm.
it connected us.
Yep.
And I'm just like, you just don't know the bigger picture. We don't know. We might not ever know or understand fully things this side of heaven, but
Right.
like God does. And
Mhm.
that's like something
Yep.
to trust in, because
Yeah.
he's all knowing and he's Jesus. But last thing, so I can
Yeah.
let you go be with your sweet son. I love leaving our listeners with just real life practical steps for healing in their pocket, with it being a podcast. So what are some practical steps that have helped you along your healing journey that other people might be able to grasp?
Yeah, I'm thinking now I know I remember I said I had two things that I wanted to share about my healing, two like main things, and I talked about, looking at my husband as an idol, but that second thing, I know there's a reason I didn't bring it up earlier because it fits so perfectly into what I'm to
Amazing.
say. And I know that I said a lot of like read books, look to wise counsel, but also something that I didn't mention that for me is just a given, right? Is like don't forget to talk to God. Like I sometimes get in the shower and I'm like, God, what is it that you want me to do here? Like this is a hard situation. Like what's your guidance? What are your words? Like show me any way that you can. Show me through people. Show me through even what I may see on social media sometimes, as crazy and toxic as social media can be sometimes. It also,
Powerful.
yeah, it can be
I can
powerful. So, number one, like what I can leave you with things to have in your back pocket. Don't forget to talk to God. Don't, even if it feels like maybe some people I remember early on in my journey, like I said, I didn't grow up praying. I didn't grow up, going to church. Some people may say, I've heard this a lot, I don't know how to pray. Like, I don't know how to talk to God. Literally, like I said, for me, it's in the shower. Find a place where you can be where it's quiet, where there's no one, you know, bothering you or whatever. And just cry out to God, talk to him, and just, maybe in that moment you'll feel like, you'll hear from him. Maybe you won't, but just continue practicing that, continue
yeah.
doing that, because that to say, the second thing I wanted to share real quick is that something I've walked through that may help others is the honoring of our parents. And sometimes it's really hard to know how to honor our parents when we don't quite agree with maybe who they are or what they do. And that's the situation that I walk through personally. I'm
Mm,
continuing to walk through. I'm still walking through right now. And I just remember that brings me to, I remember talking to God one day and praying, and I had told myself I wasn't going to think about this. I was like, we're not thinking about that anymore. Yeah, there's a frustration there, but we're not going to think about it. And I remember just thinking, like, God, so many people have told me to be a little bit more transparent and vulnerable. There's a whole story with that, but so many people have told me to cut my mom off. Like it's like I've already tried hard enough. I've prayed for her. I've done this. I've led her to going to church and building a relationship with you, and like nothing's working. Like I'm still frustrated. It's still, affecting me daily. Like people are like, why do you deal with this, right? The situation that I deal with. And I remember talking to God about it. And this was like in the past like 6 months. And him telling me, this was so pivotal for me. Julia, you're different. You're different. You're walking with me. The people who have told you to cut your mom off are not walking with me. Like, you're different. And that was when I was like, oh my goodness. And I started looking into things in the Bible about honoring my mom. And I started learning how to honor my mom, even if it doesn't feel good, right? And so I don't want to go through what that looks looks like for me, because that's like a whole thing. Feel free to message me if anyone is walking through the same thing and wants to talk about it. But yeah, don't forget to talk to God. Don't forget to pray. Um, yes, we can look for wisdom and guidance from people and books, and that can help us in a lot of seasons.
Yeah.
But we still need to hear from God. So that would be my one thing, my main thing. Um, and then, yeah, I think I kind of went over it. Just look for wise counsel, look for guidance. We can't do life on our own, and we weren't meant to do life on our own. So that's something that we really need to remember. Like, community is so important. Don't feel like you need to do anything on your own. I'm sure you can message either of us, and we're so happy and open to help any women, moms, wives, whoever you are, even men, maybe we can lead you to wise counsel. Maybe not us, but
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. I love that. Like, just talking to God, it's like being a mom has really changed my conversation habits with Jesus, like, because I need him all the time. And I'm so thankful. Like, I get like in these like little moments where I'm like, well, dang, my prayer life doesn't, or like my quiet time. I don't have quiet time the way that it used to look, like it's during nap time when my son's laying on top of me or something. And it's like, that's beautiful, and like now I talk to God way more than I ever did. And, God knows us, he knows what we need, and
Mhm.
he will answer us either through someone or like I think one thing people will be like, well, how do I know if it's God's voice? And
Yes.
something that I've learned to just kind of like go with and is that like because of how I know or like I know who Jesus is now, right? Like I know who he is because of the time that I've spent with him. And like
Mhm.
you learn his character by spending time with him. And so
Yeah.
like when we hear like a voice or something, or I mean it mainly sounds like it's our voice, but
It's our
that
yeah.
voice in our head,
Mhm.
it has to be like lovely and kind and life-giving and
Mhm.
like things that are going to lead you to produce fruit
Yes.
and not things that are going to lead you away from God.
Right.
And like things that I've noticed, like it's always that initial voice, right? And then you're like, what was that like? Or
Yes.
like,
That
is that
wasn't my
me?
thought. That wasn't
Yeah, is
my
that
thought.
me? And so it's like that initial thought before you have a chance to question, like that's often Jesus,
Yeah.
like just being there with you. And I think just like don't overthink it and put it through the filter of the Bible. Like
Mhm.
I said, like,
Mhm. Yes.
excuse me, if it's honoring to God and if it's life-giving,
Yeah.
that's Jesus.
Mhm.
If it's there to steal, kill, or destroy something within you or whatever, like that's the enemy because that's what he's out to do. And so I think that's just a really powerful um advice that you have
Yeah,
shared with us. And I think just by what I said is just another little filter that everybody can use. And
for
like
sure.
like Julia said, we are always here to talk or connect or whatever. Send us DMs. And I'm so thankful for this moment with you. So just thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for giving away some of your time to chat with all of us. And thank you for opening up your heart and being authentic and vulnerable by sharing your healing journey, all with the desire to help others walk through their desert and find their way to Jesus. It's been just truly an honor to meet with you at the well and talk about how a life with Jesus changes everything. I pray those who are listening are filled with hope, encouragement, and comfort as you continue to meet with Jesus at the well. You can find Julia on Instagram at underscore Julia Burr. And to all of you, we love you, friend, and we are here cheering you on.
Love you.